guys, Comic Boom here to talk about all things Rebirth and specifically Wonder Woman. And I want to talk a little bit about feminism in Wonder Woman and the portrayal of feminism in the pages of Wonder Woman as written by Rucka. I've read the first 22 issues of Wonder Woman and made some observations. First and foremost, I think it's very clear that Mr. Rucka is trying very, very hard to show a very feminist and powerful Wonder Woman, but I'm going to suggest that I think he's trying a little bit too hard, and some of the evidence of that is in the way that the men are portrayed, and all the men in Wonder Woman Rebirth. I can't be the only one who's noticed that despite the accolades that the storyline has got, it's hard not to notice that once again it comes at the expense of making men look particularly bad. Maybe we deserve it because of all the women in the refrigerators, as Gail Simone would say. She coined that phrase, women have been the victim in comics for quite a long time. So I guess it makes sense to see an inordinate amount of men in Wonder Woman comics always seen as the bad guys, the psychopaths, the crazy people, the evil gods. It seems to be a particular of prominence in Wonder Woman Rebirth. In particular, well, let's just go through it. First of all, in the primary enemy, the primary bad guy in Wonder Woman Rebirth is Ares. He's captured, he's trapped on Themyscira, and his twin sons, Phobos and Deimos, are looking for him. So we got three bad guys right out of the bat. We got the evil Ares, is of course, he's the god of war, and we got his twin sons that create terror and horror. They're Phobos and Deimos. And it's these three men which are portrayed as creating horror for all these women. Even the female villains in Wonder Woman Rebirth, a lot of them are only become villains because of the actions of men. It's almost annoying a little bit because, I mean, really, are all men that bad? As a matter of fact, the only good guy in all of Rebirth, there's only one good guy, and that's Steve Trevor. And what's even emasculating about Steve Trevor is that he's, despite the love that he has for Diana and the love that Diana has for Steve Trevor, Wonder Woman's love for Steve Trevor is not enough to snap Wonder Woman out of her state of mind where she's trapped in a lie. And the only thing that can snap her out of her mental state where she can't see through the illusion that was created by either Ares or some unknown force is an old beast character named Ferdinand, who's a half-man, half-beast Kithotar or Minotaur of some kind. But Steve Trevor's love for her, his background with her, that relationship isn't enough. So the one predominant alpha male character in the storyline, Steve Trevor, even his presence is not enough. His presence with the magic lasso is not enough to snap Diana, to snap Wonder Woman back to the truth, back to reality. Now, of course, let's talk about the villains. Now, we have the Cheetah, who, Barbara Minerva, who is in a lesbian relationship with Ada Candy. And unfortunately for Barbara Minerva, she becomes cursed by another male god, Urshkataga, which of course disrupts and causes conflict and angst in her relationship with Ada Candy. So we have a male god disrupting a perfectly good lesbian relationship. And then of course we've got Veronica Cale, who had a bitter, ugly relationship with a man, giving birth to a daughter named Izzy, and her daughter Izzy becomes cursed by the twin sons of Ares, who want to blackmail Veronica Cale into helping find and release Ares from imprisonment on Themyscira. So they want to blackmail Veronica Cale to find Themyscira, and they do that by cursing her daughter. And how do they curse Veronica Cale's daughter Izzy? They literally strip this innocent small girl, teenage girl, of her identity. Her very identity is stripped, both metaphorically and literally. These two evil men have literally given Izzy a blank face. They've stripped her of her identity. It's the ultimate horror. And of course, Veronica Cale she's got a very good reason to become the bitter bitch that she's become. And on the surface, she fights for equality, she fights for gender equality. But she also must, of course, find Themyscira, and she grows to hate the gods, and she's got a very good reason to hate the gods. But she also hates men, and she hated men. It's clearly established in the storyline that she hates men before she ever met Phobos and Deimos. So the hatred that Veronica Cale has for men seems to have been developed on her own because she made some poor life choices, in particular in relationships. So that's unfortunate. Dr. Cyber, Veronica Cale's best friend Adriana, becomes Dr. Cyber because she has her best friend Adriana help her try to get some information from Wonder Woman, and in her freak accident she becomes merged with her computer and she becomes Dr. Cyber, all in an effort to find Themyscira again to help free her daughter Izzy from Phobos and Deimos in the quest for their father. So once again, it's these villains. We have at least 3, 4, 5 villains, all female villains, created because of what a man has done, or what men have done. Men have forced them to become. We have Veronica Cale's military team, led by Dr. Poison, an all-female military body, the military team that protects Veronica Cale. Those are also, so it's all females. Veronica Cale seems to have this thing again. Her hatred for men extends her entire team, her bodyguards, all female. So she very much is on this female empowerment thing. She's a billionaire, she's powerful. As a matter of fact, when she paid $15 million for a date on her first time that she met Wonder Woman. She outbid Bruce Wayne and Lex Luthor for one night with Wonder Woman. It was nothing sexual. She was just trying to manipulate her into a situation where she could get Wonder Woman to use her magic lasso so she could have her team Poison analyze in the background the use of the magic lasso, hoping to pick up on some of the energy to see if they could trace it back to where Themyscira might be hidden, because it's in a different plane of existence. But in any event, the fact is that we have all this manipulation going on, and in the background here, Veronica Cale, she doesn't have much of a choice, because she wants to cure her daughter and get the gods off her back. She's got a reason to resent gods, and she's already hates men, so she hates gods, so she's not really in a great place, to say the very least. Now we throw into that, there's also Circe, or Circe, C-I-R-C-E, Circe, did I say that right? A classic Wonder Woman enemy, who's also hired by Veronica Cale to try to remove the curse. And Circe is unsuccessful in releasing the curse from Izzy, but in the process, Circe does manage to essentially transform Phobos and Deimos, the Ares sons, again, 2 evil men, into dogs. So literally, I mean, men don't fare too well in this storyline. Ares' sons literally become dogs of war. They're transformed into 2 Dobermans that Veronica Cale forces around like pets. So treating men like animals, literally, is that symbolism there. And that's a little bit disturbing. And Wonder Woman herself is an alpha female. There's this concept called hypergamy and hypogamy. Hypergamy is the idea of marrying up. So if you're like a 7, ideally you'd love to be able to marry a 10. And and hypogamy is when you're marrying down. So you might be a 9, but you'll marry a 7. Now, why would you do that? Well, see, under feminist theory, the reason why in Western civilization, for the most part, women generally will tend to marry for social status, or for riches, and they'll marry for security, which is why you'll often see beautiful women married to older gentlemen who aren't particularly attractive, because they want to marry up. They're marrying for social status. Men, on the other hand, will marry more attractive women for their social status. So women in that regard are marrying up in terms of class and security, and men are marrying up in terms of attractiveness to marry something, marry a person more attractive than they are. Well, now that's the feminist theory of I guess, how a feminist would perhaps look at the patriarchal society. Now, Wonder Woman comes from a matriarchal society, so when she comes to man's world, now it makes sense that she would be attracted to Steve Trevor. Wonder Woman has no need for security. She's royalty. She's rich. She doesn't need to worry about security. So she's going to be looking for the most attractive man, because she doesn't need anything. She doesn't need security. So essentially, your typical Amazon in terms of looking for a mate is predominantly first and foremost looking for attractiveness. Now, of course, Rucka can't write that Wonder Woman's like that because that would be inappropriate, because Wonder Woman's supposed to be all about equality. And so he basically has a scene in a story where Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor are talking, and he's talking and she's talking about, well, she's always been about love, but she doesn't know much about romance, and it makes a big deal out of it. But it's a beautiful scene, beautifully illustrated by Liam Sharp. But it's all for naught, because the reality is that there's not a lot of love between Wonder Woman and Steve Trevor, and if there is, it's certainly not very powerful, because it doesn't save Wonder Woman. When Wonder Woman's in a catatonic state in the institution, it's not Steve Trevor that helps her. Their relationship did piddly squat. It was essentially useless. It literally took a Kithatar, or a half-man, half-beast named Ferdinand, with the magic lasso to get her out of her state of mind. And so even Wonder Woman's relationship with the only good guy, the only good man in the story, is completely compromised, and it really has of absolutely no force effect. And it really makes you wonder, is Steve Trevor just a piece of tail for Wonder Woman? I think he is. Maybe she'll go back to Superman, who knows? So the love of men has no effect on this storyline. Love in general doesn't have any, Wonder Woman talks about equality, but it really is not present in her comic book. What it really is more about female empowerment than it is about equality. And that's fine. The story's okay. It's decent. But it's about female empowerment first and foremost. Equality is definitely relegated to the sidelines. Because quite frankly, there's some borderline man-hating in this series, and no one's going to bitch about it because Lord knows there's enough women in refrigerators and comic books, so to speak. But it is something to think about. I will say this, that if you want to talk about empowering women, that's all well and good. But I think that in certain ways, Greg Rucka is trying a little bit too hard here. There's a lot of good stuff here, but it is interesting that everything from Veronica Cale's bodyguards, who are all women, to the terrorists at the United Nations at one point, of course they're all men. The first time Wonder Woman meets Ares, Wonder Woman acts rather bizarrely. She gets on her knees and supplicates herself before the god, and he grabs her head, and it kind of looks like the evil man pulling her by her hair in a very graphic way, and like he's the bad guy, and yet it's Wonder Woman herself who debased herself by getting on her knees in the first place. The whole scene was disturbing and yet justified because, well, that's supplication is part of Greek mythology. To me, it's all BS. A woman who wants to be on par with men, you don't supplicate yourself like that. You don't get on your knees, but yet she did that. The empowerment issues here are absolutely rampant throughout the Wonder Woman Rebirth series. The focus is very clearly on the female relationships because it's predominantly females in the story. And in particular, given the far more powerful relationship would appear to be that of Etta Candy and Barbara Minerva, which is the lesbian relationship, showing the empowerment between those two women in their relationship, which their love appears to be very strong. It's so strong that it reinforces the tragedy of Barbara Minerva being manipulated into becoming Cheetah again by Veronica Cale. And so in the end, the general theme here is clearly about female empowerment, not so much about equality. It really is, when you get right down to it, this is less about equality, far more about female empowerment, and in that sense, it's a good story. Wonder Woman has some ways to go before she's going to be the embodiment of equality. She's got a long way to go. This is precisely the type of story that is perfect for Greg Rucka. It's one of those traits that every writer who writes Wonder Woman does. They always try to overcompensate. They always try to overcompensate. When in doubt, make it a female character. When in doubt, make it about female empowerment. Don't make it about equality, make it about female empowerment. That's what they do, and they ram that point home. Because Wonder Woman always seems to be a character that writers, whoever writes her, whether it's a man or a woman, they always feel they got to overcompensate, and they want to make a mark by making it about female empowerment. And then they give lip service to equality, but it's not reflected in the stories. And that's my general feeling about Rebirth. It's a great story. I'm just giving my observations. You can tell me what you think, and in the meantime, hopefully that the last 3 issues of Greg Rucka will end on a high note, and maybe we'll even see some equality. Who knows? But I won't hold my breath.